Okay, so I have, I'm gonna just do the next video right now while I'm all lit up about this, because I really did feel like I wanted to talk more about how you can get direct communication with your source. So on the last video, I talked about how important it is that you keep your emotions under monitor. I'm not saying control. We don't want to control anything. The unfolding, all the stages of the unfolding are not about control. It's about being relaxed and allowing things to unfold and taking actions. But the idea is not a one of control. And I also want to touch on the importance of, so I'm talking about keeping your emotional state at a better vibration, a higher, more connected with source. And I want to try to say it in ways that doesn't sound like airy fairy, because it really isn't. You have to understand that the universe is an electronic universe. It is a vibration. It is thoughts and emotions and feelings are vibration, and they are the basis of all of this. And we are just scratching the surface of that understanding. But whenever, one of the things that I do, I've done a lot of different things along my path that have helped me get to where I am right now. And one of the things that I want to mention is the movement practice that I have done, that I spent, 14, 15 years doing, practicing, and it is 5 rhythms or open floor, and it is a practice that teaches you to be embodied, okay? So it teaches you to be in your body, which is kind of ties in with all of this stuff, because I said in the last video, I said we are this gigantic vibrational field that is partly seated within a human body, okay? Only part of our essence is in this body. The vast majority of it is projected upward and outward, but it is all here. We're always present. And so being in the body and understanding I also talked about the science of how our energy moves through our body, how the unseen energy moves through our bodies. And I don't want to go on any tangents on there. I get excited. But an important thing to keep in mind, whether you're talking about energy moving through your body or whether you're talking about energy moving through your consciousness, one of the things that we always want to notice is tension. All right? Tension. So there's fluidity, and then there's tension. All right? That is the dynamic. That is the polarity. Okay. Now, when energy is moving through your body and you have tension anywhere, it blocks the flow. So imagine a river, and as the river flows, there's boulders in the way. And when it comes to a boulder, it just moves around it, right? But some of the debris that's floating down the river, the water doesn't get stopped. The water continues to flow. But there's leaves floating down the river. And when they get to the boulder, sometimes they go around and sometimes they get stuck in a little eddy, right? There's a little eddy, they spin, the water, there's a swirling water area, and it will collect all kinds of things. And sometimes they'll collect up in there till there's a big pile of them and it becomes a little dam. Other times it collects up till it gets to a point where some of them pop out and go on their way, okay? This is a perfect analogy for what happens with our consciousness, that you can imagine, if you can imagine that the universe, the vibration of the universe is the river, and we as a human being, we're like a leaf coming down the river. And what are we going to do when we get to a boulder? We can even step aside and go ahead and be in that little eddy, or be in a little pocket somewhere where we get held up for a while. It's not a bad thing. It's just we might need to rest. And or if we're in the little spinning eddy, that might be when we're in one of those loops. You know, we all get in loops, and some people, you know, are in loops all the time. And by that, I mean, they keep having the same experience happening in their lives. Many of us that have, why is this happening to me again? This is where you feel like a victim. You're in one of these little eddies. You know, you're not a victim. There is no such thing. So when you feel yourself feeling like a victim, just recognize you're in one of these little eddies and you're with all these other leaves and you're just spinning around and spinning around. And all you need to do is break free of that, go around the boulder and get back on your way. The point of all that is to say tension in your body can also take the form of illness. It can take the form of injury. It can take the form of just you can feel it and you can move it differently. So allowing your body to be a really good channel for higher vibrations, it's helpful to do any practice. Yoga does it too. Any practice that helps you find that fluidity. So the reason I liked the movement practice is because in yoga, you're doing a lot of stretches that are going to really open up some of those channels. It's going to open up some of the chakras, and it's very beneficial, but it's generally solid. There are some yogic practices that are movement oriented now, but it's often solid. It's often, you know, you're just holding a pose and then you're holding, so you may be unblocking some things. But in a movement practice like 5 rhythms or open floor, it teaches you to be in the flow. So it's like, imagine teaching your body to be the most fluid leaf in the river. You're going to be the leaf that just goes up above and around, and if you feel that boulder, you're gonna move around the boulder. You're not gonna get caught in that eddy. You can feel it in your body. There's so much more to that, and I will do a video on that. But that is a very powerful practice. You can look it up. My very, very favorite teacher is Amber Ryan. You can look her up, and she actually has something now that she does, that she has expanded on that practice, and she does some really cool stuff. But anyway, the idea is that you find ways to understand how to keep your body from locking, how to keep your body a little bit more fluid, because that's going to help you. That's going to help you move things through your body, and it's going to help you because the more fluid you are, the more aware you are when there's tension. Because tension is a message. Tension is always a message. And so you'll notice if something is pinching, if something is locked, and you can do something to undo that. Well, you know that about your body. That's also true about your emotions. That's also true about your psychological state. And so when I'm talking about these, you know, the lovely emotions that we want to be in, it's not to assume that we can ever get to a point where we don't have those feelings, those occasional feelings of sadness or anger or angst or whatever. We have those. The clearer you get, the less you stay in them. The more you look at them to just see, hey, what's that, and then you see if there's anything you need to recognize in it and move on. In the Abraham Hicks teachings, they would say that whenever you get that feeling like that feeling in the pit of your stomach, or you're having these negative thoughts, it hurts, or you feel this pain because you're out of alignment with what your higher being wants or believes, not wants, but believes. So for example, this vibrant being that I've described that we are has no judgment about how we look or how we act or how we be. And yet, so we might make such severe judgments about ourselves. We do it to everyone, but we are most brutal to ourselves. And I honestly think the most critical, cruel people out there to other people, they're just mirroring how they feel about themselves. There could be another book on that. But anyway, the point of it is that you understand that these emotions, when they come up, when something happens and you feel sad or you feel hurt or you feel, whatever, you can understand that is just, it's tension. It's a message, just a little message coming. And you can look at it. You can, like I said about the great unfolding, you can choose how to respond. You can choose to let yourself go into the little eddy and spin around. You can call your friends and tell them the story. You can, everybody who you want to share it to, you can go on Facebook and make a post about how something bad happened to you. You can do all of that. That's just being over there in the eddy. That's just spinning around, and there's no judgment on it. It's just that it's not going to expand you. It's not going to take you to this brighter life that I'm describing. So you can look at it when it comes up. Is you get refined, you'll look at that and you'll say, oh, and you might even let yourself go into it a little bit. Maybe you won't go into the little swirling eddy. Maybe you'll just kind of hover by the bank for a little bit. You'll kind of go, get caught up by a little twig sticking out, and you just hang out there for a while, which would be like being into a quiet space where maybe you have a good cry, or you do some journaling or make art or something to kind of release that heavy emotion. And then you come back into the river. Or the better you get at it, the more that tension comes up and you look at it and you go, oh, wait a minute, that's not who I am. Imagine that. Imagine you're starting to feel sad and lonely and you're about to feel sorry for yourself because nobody loves you. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that's not who I am. You can get there. Because being lonely is a huge part of it. That's especially in this culture. We are so many of us are just so lonely. And we're lonely even in connection with other human beings because the connections are often so shallow. They're not meeting that soul hunger that we have. Another book. So, but what we can be aware of is that this part of us when you realize that you actually have a direct connection to the all of consciousness, to the all of the universe, when you understand that you have guides who are always there, they have no judgments about you. They're only interested in your well-being, your best and brightest self. They're interested in assisting you. That's all there's no, all of that fear that, even any messages you got through religious teachings about all, hell and all these things. It's like, this is all mind constructs, all things that are in your mind. They're not real. And the less credibility you give to those darker things, the better and brighter your life is going to become. And the better you're going to contribute to the upliftment of all. So in that tension of loneliness, if you could understand that you have these beings with you, you are never alone. And you might feel a sadness if you don't have that partner, that lover, if you're missing your lover or you don't have one, and you have that kind of sadness and you think, oh, but sure, you can comfort me, but not that way. You can get to a point where you understand that it is only, all of that will come to you. You can have all of that come to you if you can keep that vibration higher, keep your emotional state higher. A technique that I used to use, and it actually just came to me one day I was in a sad place, in a sad moment. I was probably in a bath. I love taking baths as a purifier. I used to do it even as a child. This just beautiful place to be in that water. And I was feeling very sad and very, I was feeling lonely in my heart. And I felt a sense of someone behind me reaching around from behind and enfolding me like a mother holding a child. Or it almost felt like a bird's wings enfolding, right? So this is all about our own minds. So if you want to use this technique, which I highly recommend, use whatever visual helps you. But the idea is allow that presence to exist. As you give in your mind, you give permission, I call it, for that presence to exist. You will feel it. And you can feel it because these guides, these angelic beings are there. They want to comfort you when you're in that moment. So you can just imagine that, you can be held, it doesn't have to be another human being if it's not right in that moment and you don't have a human being. Rather than doing destructive behaviors that you are likely to reach for, try giving that awareness that there is, that allow your guides to enfold you, allow your own higher self to enfold you. But you can have that feeling of comfort and beauty and joy, and let yourself be rocked, let yourself be held, and have your cry if you need to. But as you understand that, you can, little by little, you feel more aware of that presence. Well, the next stage of that, now what I'm talking about now, how can you get that direct communication so that you have a clearer and clearer idea that you don't need to go to somebody else to tell you your stuff, right? We like to go to readers because a lot of people want to know, am I going to get the job? Am I going to get married? Am I going to have a baby? All these things that we're curious about. And all a reader can do is tell you in this moment in time, in this current moment, right now, what's in front of you, what's available to you. And they can see that. And they can see what some of your blockages might be, or your, what are stumbling blocks. If they're a good seer, if they're not, they might see only, if they're caught up in their own fears, they're going to see the scary stuff. So if you've ever had a reading and somebody told you stuff to be afraid of, don't go there. Discount it all, because that person is in their own fear and they're projecting their fears. They're picking that up. That's why it's always better to get your own guidance. And when you are told any of that stuff, that is transitory. That is, we are continually, moment by moment, making choices and creating new things and new choices and new things. And those readings are, they're not static. It's not going to stay like that. It's just that moment in time. So you then go about your life. And if it gave you some positive things to think about, that's awesome. Because if someone tells you something beautiful and you believe it, then you're going to help create that into being. So it's not all bad, but the point is you're going to be much clearer if you get your own guidance. So you can do oracles, you can do your own tarot cards, your runes, you can do i-ching, you can do whatever you feel drawn to. You can try different things. That kind of touches on what I used to say I wanted to do, help people try. That's always been my vision, and it is what I would do in coaching if anyone wanted to get coaching with me, is help you try out different things so that you can find what works best for you and what feels the most resonant for you. But so there are oracles that you can use, and there are ways that you can use those so that you can, and I had so many experiences of seeing things, the universe will provide, right? You're looking for messages, the universe will provide. If you're paying attention, like I described, paying attention to what happens, you'll see stuff that is crazy. Like if you do, you're going to do a reading with tarot cards, and you're going to shuffle the cards, and some card pops out of the deck, and you're like, huh. Or you inadvertently see a card at the bottom, and you're like, you put it back in. You shuffle, and then you do your cards, and that card is there, or you should never do multiple readings. Well, I don't want to get too much into that. But anyway, there's all kinds of things that'll happen. You might do a different thing, and that same message is going to come in another form. So there's all different ways that works. But recently, so what I'm doing right now, what I started doing recently is working with a pendulum. And the reason I did that is I told you I was working with, I was learning some of these biogeometry things from Ibrahim. I just learning online, and a book that I got that I've barely started. But I was thinking, oh, well, they do pendulums. They use pendulums to determine where there are energy vortexes of, good, powerful energy and distorted energy. You can find places in the physical environments where those are, and they have tools that they use for that. So I thought, well, I should use my pendulum, which another way you can use a pendulum as an oracle. And I had used it, and I thought, I should practice it so that I can use these to the divining style of pendulums that they have. And I thought, I'm going to practice it, but there's a difference. So what they're doing with those pendulums is reading energy, and that's one way you can use pendulums. But another way, if you want to use them as an oracle, is to use them as a yes and no question asker, right? So I have this beautiful pendulum, and I'm going to tell you a quick story about it if I have enough time. Anyway, so you can use a pendulum. This is what I use. And this is a thing that, why it matters. So there are times throughout the past when I have attempted to utilize this pendulum, this very same pendulum or a different one. I've had a couple, and I couldn't get it to work very well. I couldn't get very clear messages. And this time, when I picked it up, and I had already started doing a lot of, I've been doing a lot of personal work on my vibration. I had already been doing a lot of research online that was taking me closer and closer to the understanding that I'm at right now. So I was in a place where I was more receptive. That's the only thing it's all about being receptive. And I was in a place apparently where I was more receptive. So I did this pendulum, and there's a whole thing on how you use it, which I'm not going to go into right now, but there's a, you program it and you tell it which way you want yes, and everything is yes and no questions. But what I found is that, and you use it by holding it over a hand and having an arm supported, and you direct where you want that help, that assistance to come from. But literally, I watched it in my hand. Hold still, start moving. Like, it was shocking to me how clear it was. I had never seen it. It was like magic, but of course it's not magic. But it is about the vibration. It is about the vortexes that we're in, and it is about allowing those messages through. So someone who does channeling, they're allowing that energy to speak through them. I'm telling you, I started to get this thing started working so incredibly, and I began to realize, because you can just ask simple yes and no questions, but then I started asking things where I wanted answers, and I would have it spell out. So I have a friend who has a daughter with cerebral palsy, and she can't speak, and they do this thing with her, how to communicate with her. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I can use my pendulum the way they speak to Mira. So I would ask the letters, right? Is it, the first half or the second half of the alphabet, And if it's the second half, okay, M, N, and you could do that. Anyway, through doing that, I started getting amazing messages. And it is part of what has been helping me cultivate so this is all recent. This is in the last 2 months that I started doing this. But it is what had me set up my area for doing my clearing my chakras. I have a copper pyramid over this table. There's a whole story around where that came from decades ago. But I was given information that to set this up. I've been guided about when to meditate. I've been getting information through this pendulum that dovetails with a lot of the Abraham Hicks stuff, which is why I like, that's why this pendulum is actually what directed me to that work, because Esther Hicks and Abraham, they did the power of positive aspects workbook, and my pendulum told me literally that my entourage, believe in that the power of positive aspects is like, and so we all have different guidance. Mine are somewhat technical and sciencey, which is kind of how I always was. So they speak to me sometimes in energy terms. And I can't remember exactly how they said it's the power. I have to always look all this stuff up online, because sometimes they tell me things that are in German and Nordic languages and stuff. But it is, they said it is the AC/DC current power. I'd have to go back to my notes to see, but they basically said it is like the power bank of the most supreme, highest vibration movement that you can achieve. So they really believe in that. And then I can come back and I can read things and I can ask them, well, what about this? Is that clear? The Abraham Kareem work. And there's also a guy in Atlanta who does a lot of that work with the biogeometry and the teaching. But Abraham does some stuff with biogeometry signatures, and I've been told I got that book because I really was into that. I really wanted to, I love the idea of the shape of things and focusing on the shape, but I'm told by my guides not to do that, and that the signatures are not the thing. Now, I can't make that proclamation that it's not true for everyone. I can just say it's not true for me. They tell me that it's not the thing. And so I veer away from that. But the point I'm making is that once you start finding a way to connect, so it all can snowball. So for example, connecting with my source, I got the information about, doing my chakra clearing, the toning that I do, which I had learned years ago at a Jonathan Goldman workshop. I did like a 9-day healing sounds intensive. And so some of this comes out of that, which is coming back to me. And so for like 2 months, I've been doing this almost every single morning for an hour. They're very clear on that. And what happens is, as you start to clean and clear, you get better and better at hearing that without having to use tools. This morning, so literally you can see how this thing looks right now, but literally this morning it broke and I had to super glue it together. And it was exactly when I thought to myself, do I even need the pendulum? And I reached up for my book to take notes, and my pendulum fell on the floor and cracked in half. And it's easy to put it back together, but it made me realize, I'm like, so I'm at a point where I'm gonna use it less, joyfully. It also, when I first started using it, I was asking a lot of questions and a lot of questions and a lot of questions. And then all of a sudden it disappeared, and I lost it. And I tried making one. I didn't have the money to buy another one. I tried making one and I tried using it. It was so frustrating. And I just thought, it's like nobody's talking to me right now. And it would feel like that. Sometimes I'd be like, what, are we not talking right now? It's funny, but it gets like that. And then I started to realize I'm depending too much on it. I'm using it too much anyway. And then all of a sudden it showed back up again. It fell out of a pocket. And I glued it back together because I realized that was a message. I know that was a message. That's what appeared in front of me. My pendulum broke, but it only broke in a piece that was able to be put back together. And now I know to be mindful, to only use it when I really need it, and because that was just after I came out of, I had done my toning, and then I did a meditation, and I was in a really clear space. I knew what I was going to talk about today. I had all this clarity, all these ideas came to me. And it was like, what do you need the pyramid for? The pendulum for? Because sometimes I would say, I'm thinking about talking about this. Is that a good idea? And be like, yes, I'm thinking about this. I get just confirmation from that. But it's kind of like, take the training wheels off. What I'm working on and what I want to help people work on, because I think this is what the time calls for, is not for everybody to do readings, not for people to channel, but for people to cultivate the ability to start to actually get direct knowledge from your own higher consciousness and from your guides without having to use anything, and without having someone come into your conscious mind. I think that that's the point that we're at, and that is where I am heading, and that is where I am expanding this point in time where we can, and I believe, I get very excited about it. I just think that is what is up for us now. And my last thing I want to say before I end this video is that, and I think I've said this before, those of us that feel in our hearts, even though, we're not necessarily here on missions, or are we? I don't know. We're here to explore and to create and to enjoy, to be in joy while we create and expand. And it is our fears, our loneliness, our sense of loss, our sense of disconnection, all those things in those lower vibrations, cause us to take those actions that can be harmful to other people, that can be harmful to the greater good. And when people look around and say, oh my God, everything is going to hell in a handbasket right now, and, you know, what can we do? And, you know, trying to come up with different approaches to it. It is so simple. It is so simple. Each of us who feel called, who feel that inner urging to step into this bigger and brighter self, as we learn to cultivate our emotional state, as we learn to tune out that interference, that those sounds of life that are distracting and discordant, tune those out. Tune yourself up and up into these feelings of gratitude and grace and beauty and love, all of those vibrations. There is no fight to be had. There is no undoing anything. It's all in divine right order. We learn from that discord. But ideally, we want to learn quickly and move on. And those human beings who develop that capacity, the power that we radiate is infinitely brighter and more intense and more compelling and magnetic than all of that darkness. And the antidote to a discordant culture is not to go into fear and concern and worry. It's to fill your human self with as much radiance as you can possibly muster. And by doing these practices I'm talking about, by doing your very delicate, graceful unfolding, you are building that momentum, and you're building that momentum into something much more vibrant, much more electric, of the highest light. The darker energies become dissipated. They shrink. The only thing that makes them grow is attention. Just like what makes this grow is attention. So the more we put our attention on the things we want to grow, and the more we remove our attention from those things that we don't want to grow, the better the world, the better the planet is going to be. It doesn't take very many awakened souls. It doesn't take very many individuals beaming that kind of light. It's incredibly powerful. So I could keep going all day, but I'm going to stop there. Hopefully this information is also helpful. And if it is, I certainly would appreciate if you like and follow my Facebook page, The Great Unfolding, and my YouTube channel, The Great Unfolding, and help us all build something really beautiful.